Hello lovely stitchy friends, I'm Kat and I'm delighted you could stop by my channel, Catkin and Lily, where we talk all things cross stitch. I'm joined here today by a beautiful fancy lady ready for some Stitch With Me action. It's the 14th of July and this lovely lady is Gaia the Earth Goddess from Bella Filipina. Now I'll try and give you a better look at her, but she is quite huge. If I can't quite get her all in shot to show you, then I will pop a picture in. But this is what she's going to look like. I've been working from the bottom up, and that means you can see, since I'm up here, that she is all finished up to that point, apart from some backstitch. So I can't get her all in, but we'll have a little. There we go. If I do that, and then we'll scroll her down so you can see. I'll roll her up as we go. Look at that. Oh, it's fun to see her appearing there. All this amazing, beautiful design. Right, let's roll her up. Now, the reason I've brought her out today is for some stitching with some metallics. Because if you're a returning viewer, thank you so much for coming to spend some time with me. And you'll know that when I do Stitch With Me's, I like to dive into a particular topic and show you something that I'm working on that maybe I can give you some little hints and tips along the way as well. And if you're new here, then welcome. I hope you'll enjoy this. And as I say, you will soon find out how I like to do these Stitch With Me's. I have got notes and they're falling off now. Right, because I have so many things to share with you about metallics and I don't want to forget anything. So I have done some metallic. You'll see already I've been working on particularly this area. All of the bits up here have been filled in. I've done some metallic in here and I've just started working up into her bodice here. And I've also done a little bit over here on this side. I've done some of this orangey metallic over here. And you might even see there's little flecks of sparkly on the fabric because the little bits of metallic do tend to kind of come off and dot themselves around your project, which is no bad thing. Can never have too much sparkle. So the plan today is to stitch a few of the different metallic colours. I'll show you, there are 4 different metallics in here. You can see actually the green, there's a little bit, there's quite a lot of the green. I've kind of covered it up now, but there's a lot of the green down here in the cape on both sides, and also, let's try and roll that back up again, in the butterfly over here as well. There's a little bits of metallic in there. So I'm not going to be stitching any of the green today, so I think that's the only one I'm not going to be using. We've got this gold one that's all in here and all down in the dress, so we're definitely going to stitch a little bit of that in here. We've got some of this pink colour, this pinky one. This is actually, you'll see I've done a bit of that just in here. There's some there. And then this orange is this colour here. So we're going to do a little bit of all 3 of these so I can show you what the differences are, because there is a bit of variation with metallic threads. These are all Krynic. They're all number 4 braid. And they are a little different from each other. So we're going to do a little bit of that. Not going to do any of the green. So let's get straight into it, and then, as I say, I'll talk more about it as we go. So I'm going to zoom us in so we can see, hopefully you can see what I'm doing. Right, I think that's all good. So we're going to start with this, and of course the first challenge is threading it. Let's see if I can find the end. Now, when you're starting with a metallic for the first sort of session, you might find the end, it can get quite frayed. This one doesn't look too bad, so I'll give it a go at threading it. I might need to trim the end, but we'll give it a go. I'm going to use my method that I usually do, which is to stick it, and apologies, this might end up off camera because I can't see what I'm doing. Oh, look at that. Well, that's a good start, isn't it? We are threaded straight away. Okay, now this next bit as well, it will be difficult for you to see because I've zoomed in so you can see the stitching. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to hold this end right here in my finger and thumb. So you can't see it, but I'm going to stretch that away from me, and I'm taking the thread. So I'm holding this out away from me and I'm taking my thread to my elbow. And that's a pretty good length to stitch with. So I'm going to trim that off there. And then the other thing I sometimes do is where I've just trimmed, that's going to be a much neater end than the one I've just threaded. So I'll often take my needle down to the other end. Let me see how much longer I've got. I don't want it too much longer. There we go. So I've got the two ends quite close together. It's hard to show you because it's twiddly thread. But I've only got one end a little bit longer than that end, and I've put the end that I threaded here, I'm going to bury that end because it's already got a tiny bit more frayed than that one. So we may as well bury that one. So as I say, we're going to stitch here, and the other thing I've done, I'll show you, I've got a little bit of the pattern. It is only a small section, so I don't think it's going to be a problem that I'm showing you that on camera here. And what I've done on here, this is a copy of the pattern, and I have marked on here with highlighter. I've actually marked all the stitches that I'm going to need to do. Because for this one, because it's all in between, it's pretty much filling in all the gaps, but not all of them. So I want to make sure that I don't miss what I'm doing with this one. So I've highlighted all my stitches, so hopefully I should know what I'm doing. And I've actually got, let me see, I got all the way up to there, yeah. So this is the stitch, this is where I'm going to need to start, is just here. So I'm going to put my needle in at the front, turn that over, and now I can see on the back that's where I need to get to. So I'll run that in. Obviously with metallic threads, you do need to run in at the back if you're just using one strand, which usually you are. This is on a 28 count even weave, and I've run it in probably a couple more stitches than I normally would, because metallic threads be a little bit springy, a little bit slippery sometimes, and they do like to pull out much more easily. There we go, we've got that in the right spot to start stitching, and hopefully we can then work away. Make sure I don't pull that. Just going to check. Yeah, there we go. So let's start stitching with a little bit of this. You might get the classic metallic thread scritchy sound, which I hope is not actually upsetting for any of you. Right, let's check where I am. 1, 2, 3, 4. Yeah, I'm definitely filling in all of these ones across here. So I'm going to work in rows across here. Now I said about the scritchy scratchy sound, the first thing to say about these threads, and I'll show you them next to each other later, is although they're all Krynic threads, they do come up quite different sometimes. So I would say this is one of the slightly softer threads. This one and the green one are definitely a little bit softer to work with. The other two I'll show you with the orange and the pinky coloured threads. Those are quite a bit wirier. Doesn't necessarily make them harder to work with, but maybe a smidge. But I'll show you those later. Now, of course, the first thing that comes up with metallic threads, other than the challenge of trying to thread them, is when do you stitch it on a design? Do you leave it all to the end? Well, as you can see on mine, no. I don't leave it all to the end. You can. You absolutely can. If you would rather just leave all the metallic and do it all in one go at the end, then yeah, that's absolutely fine. Just check my stitches. What I didn't bring with me was a pen to mark these off, so I'm just going to have to wing it, which is never a good idea, really, is it? Okay, I'm just going to work up this side. So yes, as you can see, I don't don't like to leave all the metallic to the end, because even though I always say I don't mind working with metallic, I still don't want it all left to the end. So I will just make sure that any area where there's metallic, I will work all the regular cross stitch first. So that's why you'll see there's gaps left in here. I've worked all the crosses that are in regular thread, and then I go back and add the metallic. But I don't wait all the way to the end. As long as I've got the surrounding stitches all filled in, then I'm happy to go and do the metallic. It's nice to get some of that sparkle in as you go along, because it makes it look really pretty and it does bring the design together. So yeah, I wouldn't really want to leave it all till the end. But I do find that it sits better if you do the regular crosses first. Whenever you're doing something like this, where you've got this kind of crosshatch, sort of checkerboard interleaving of stitches. Just trying to move my thread along my needle. This is where you have to be very careful sometimes. I probably left that slightly too long in that one spot. I would say one thing that's really, really useful is keep moving your needle along your thread regularly. That's why I start with it folded almost in double. I don't have the free end much longer, also the attached end much longer than the free end, because I want to be able to keep moving my needle along regularly so it doesn't sit in one spot for too long. It probably did slightly there, and then it can be really tricky. You need to be very careful then when you're moving the thread, moving the needle along the thread. But yes, I do find it's hard to get metallics to look super neat, and it's hard to get this kind of checkerboard to look neat as well. So I think the first thing is do what you can to get it as neat as you can, and then don't worry about it, because there's only so much you can do. And the reason I think metallic thread sometimes just does not look quite as neat, and I have got some tips coming up. I will share some things with you about how to get it a little bit neater. But one of the reasons is it's just because of the makeup of the thread, because it's made up of, you can see all these, it's these little filaments all wound together, and it's just not, it's just the nature of the thread. It's not as smooth as regular floss, and so it's just not going to lie quite as neatly. And that is all there is to it. As I said. That said, obviously there are things you can do to help with that. Most of which will probably just sort of kind of come up as I'm working with this. Oh, I just need to check because I might have gone one stitch too far. I have gone one stitch too far. This is very, very bad form. I did a reverse stitch to try and unpick that one. Sometimes that actually ends up being a complete nightmare. Don't necessarily try that technique unless you are prepared to deal with the absolute nonsense that will occur if you get it wrong. But yes, so I guess that one of the first tips to say with metallic threads is something you've already seen, which is to use shorter lengths. There's a really good reason that I tend to use only from my fingertips to my elbow, is because if basically the longer your thread is, the more wear and tear it's going to get as you stitch with it, because you're going to get friction on your thread as you're stitching. You're pulling the length through the holes, and it's also going to get friction on the eye of the needle there. So the longer you cut your thread, the more time that thread is being pulled through the fabric and getting more and more wear and tear. And especially for the metallic threads, they can just end up really getting quite rough. And they're just more prone to knotting and tangling as well. So yeah, I would say shorter lengths is probably one of the most common tips, and for very good reason, because it really does make a huge difference. So yeah, that's my go-to length. The other thing you can do in terms of sort of smoothing the thread is, of course, to use thread conditioner. Now, I didn't bring any with me. I'm not going to be using it today, but it can be helpful because it does just smooths all of those fibres. Smooths, if you put thread conditioner along the length of the thread, it just sort of smooths everything all together, and it also protects the thread a little bit. So it does protect it from the wear and tear as that friction kind of as you're pulling the thread through the fabric. Thread conditioner can protect it a little bit, so that really can be quite helpful. This is actually quite a tricky bit to work. Tricky counting, even with having highlighted my stitches on here. Now, amazingly, I haven't actually had to use one of the other tips that I was going to share with you, which I guess we'll come up to in a minute probably. I'm going to run out of the bit of pattern that I've got printed for this in the end, but I'm also running out of thread, so we'll park this one momentarily. Because it's going to be finished, so we will run this thread in, and then we'll move on to doing a different colour, because I kind of want to show you the difference. And this one's not. If you look, sometimes they fray really badly at the end. This one's actually stayed together quite well. That's definitely one big difference certainly between different brands of metallic thread, but also even within the brand. I find there are Kreinik threads that fray absolutely terribly. Oh, I didn't do that. And some that really don't fray at all. In fact, I would say that's actually probably a big difference between... So the two brands of metallic thread that I particularly like are Kreinik and Petite Treasure Braid. And I honestly don't really want to use any other metallics. I haven't found... most of the others are absolutely horrible to work with. It's the reason most people don't like metallic threads, is because they've only ever worked with the really, really nasty ones, which is pretty much anything other than Petite Treasure Braid and Kreinik. Now, the difference between Petite Treasure Braid and Kreinik is that Petite Treasure Braid, although they're ostensibly the same weight, a Petite Treasure Braid is basically the same kind of weight, so the same thickness of thread as a Kreinik No. 4 braid. But they are slightly different. I would say the Petite Treasure braid is probably, let me go 2 directions on here, spin that round. I'm going to run this in one way and then the other way. Yeah, the Petite Treasure braid is just a little bit skinnier and a little bit softer, generally. As I say, it does still vary, but I would say it's probably a little bit softer. So it's probably nicer to work with. The Petite Treasure braid, I think, is just that little tiny bit nicer to work with than cry neck, but I don't really mind the cry neck, so I'll probably use whatever's called for in the pattern. Right, so we've done a bit of that. I've got a little bit more to do up that side, but I'll do that one later, and I want to move on to show you. I'm going to move my needle over to here to do some of a bit more of this pink, and then maybe some of this orange, because the orange over here, we've also got some backstitch on here as well. So I thought that would be really interesting to see some of that. Now, I'll see if I can show you the difference between the threads. So this is the gold we've been working with. Looks kind of like that, off camera. Let's pull it down here a little bit so you can see. I'm trying to put a bit of a background for you. There's the gold that we've been working with. It's really similar, I'll show you, to the green in here. In fact, that green is even thinner and softer. That's actually even nicer. When you feel it, you can feel it's just soft and nice. So they're really, really quite lovely. Now here's the pink. And this one, you might immediately be able to see, like I say, springy nonsense this. It is a little bit thicker. If you can't see it, you'll be able to feel it. If you get these and you run your fingers along the two, you can feel that one is slightly thicker. And it's a little bit wirier. And I would say the same with the the orange. Let's unping that. And you'll see again, it is just that bit thicker and just a little bit crunchier. We don't really like crunchy, but I mean, as I say, still not horrendous, but these two are slightly less fun to work with than the other two. But hey, you know, on the plus side, they tend not to fray as badly when they're this crunchy. So it does make the threading, again, tricky. So I'm going to, if you haven't seen my video about threading, I mean, you'll see me doing it here today anyway, but I did record a video, really quick little stitchy snippet about threading metallic threads. So I'll link that one in the description for you if you want to take a look. But it basically involves putting the end right in your finger and thumb. And I think I've missed a bit. Trying to keep it all together. And then just pushing the needle onto it. Oh, and again, there we go. 2 first-time tries. I was pretty much set up for the fact that this was just going to go badly and I was going to be unable to thread my needle. But hey, pretty good actually. Right, so again, I'm just going to measure that length, snip that off, and then again, I'm going to take my thread. This one's so curly. So curly. I'm just going to try and do it so that I've got, okay, one end just a smidge longer. This stuff is just crazy, which means you'll probably see one of the other tips that I like to share with this as well. So I've got a couple of areas here. Let me find the next bit that I need to do, which is, okay, I'm going to start. The next bit of this pinky we're doing is just out from there, I think. Yeah, I think that's it. Right. So I'm going to get a good run up on that because I do not want it pulling out. Now, let's find that exact start point. It is 1, 2, there. Yeah. Oh, see, that's just, ugh. Could feel that crunching through. See, you may hear the difference in the noise on this one. That crunchiness does just mean it just feels a bit more sticky. It feels like it wants to knot a lot more easily than some of the other ones. But again, just working with those shorter lengths. And then what I want to do with this one is, there's a couple of tips here which might seem slightly at odds with each other. The first is to be fairly gentle with your thread. I say gentle when you're moving the needle along, gentle when you're pulling it through, because if you pull the thread through the holes really quick, you zip it through like this, you're going to put more friction on there, more wear and tear on your thread. It's going to knot and tangle and rough up more easily. So it's definitely one of those slow down a little bit kind of moments. No speed stitching with metallics. I have to tell myself that as much as anyone else, because it's very tempting, isn't it? But definitely slow and steady and gentle with your metallics. And move my, again, very, very careful moving my needle along. And then in contrast to the fact that I've said I do want to be quite gentle with it, I also want to give it a little bit more of a tug when I'm doing my stitches, because, as I say, it can be quite springy, especially these crunchier ones. They just don't want to sit nice and flat. So they do just need a little bit more. You can see, actually, I think, let's see, I think on this one here, there's a bit here that hasn't sat through neatly. We're going to put a stitch above that, so I think it's going to be okay anyway. Unless I've done something horrible with my stitching. No, I don't think I have. But when you pull it through, obviously normally you do not want to be tugging your thread. And you still want to be careful with this. You don't want to be pulling your thread so tight that you're strangling your fabric, you're stretching the holes, pulling it so tight. You know, if I pull that really, really tight, I'm going to stretch that hole. So I don't want to do that. Oh, and I've missed my hole slightly there. Me naughty and come back up again. Oh, it did work. So yeah, you don't, as I say, you do not want to be pulling it too tight, but probably a little bit more of a tug. So you'll often see I'll pull it through, and I might even go and just give it an extra little sort of tug, just to make sure that each leg of the cross stitch is just sat nicely in place, that it's not loose and floppy, because that'll give you untidy stitches. So you do want to make sure you've got that good tension. As I say, every now and then I'm just moving it, and I'm only moving it a fairly short distance each time. So I'm going to keep moving. I mean, a lot of this is good advice for most threads, to be honest. Now, I don't know what I'm doing with my stitching today to not be able to show you the other tip that I normally have to use. I'll just have to show you in a minute anyway, even though I haven't actually needed it. The other difference with the crunchiness is how it looks, because you'll find with these ones over here, again, they sort of fill the spaces quite nicely. These ones, I feel like, because they're thicker, but they're slightly less fluffy. So they probably don't fill the space. You kind of get a slightly more visible cross, I would say, than with some of the other metallic threads. So depending on what colour you were using, you could get a little bit more fabric showing through with some of these crunchy ones. As I say, I do tend to just go with whatever's called for, because anytime I try and sort of change what I do with metallics, I usually end up going back to the original anyway, because quite honestly, the designer has figured out what the best option is. And it's probably best just to go with it. They do know what they're doing. Especially with these Bella Filipina designs. I absolutely would not want to second guess and change anything on these. Right, that's that one. So as you can see, it's, could it look neater? Maybe, but it looks absolutely fine to me. Now I'm going to take my thread. I need to go up to here. So again, I'm going to use my same trick. I'm going to put my needle, I've pushed it up the front, and then I'm going to turn this over and have a look and see. So I need to get over here. So I'm trying to think, to get over here, I could either run my thread up here and hop in over there, or I think what I'm going to do, it's a slightly longer path, but I think, let me turn this around. So I'm not going to run my thread up there like that. I am not leaving that length of thread. It would go from here to here, and I'm not going to leave that dangling around on the back. So I'm going to go up there, and then over there. That's going to use a tiny bit more thread, but that's now beautifully secured underneath there. I'm not going to catch anything, so I'm much happier with that. And then I can start this next section here. Settle that back out. I'm just hoping I'm going to have enough thread to finish this bit, with another bit fairly close as well that I could go to if I've still got any thread left. I do try to be quite frugal with the metallic threads because they are quite expensive, so don't really want to be wasting any. And you'll see a lot of the thread that's already in here, the regular thread. So again, seeing there's a lot of gaps on here, but this is pretty much all the regular thread. The only bits left in between these bits is the metallics and some beads. Some beads, she says, a lot of beads. This design has a crazy amount of beads, which I am leaving to the end. I would generally leave that all to the end, and it could be a mistake. But I prefer not to have beads on. You can see I stitch in hand and I've got it rolled up, but I don't really want to risk crushing the beads. Because it's rolled, it wouldn't be too bad anyway, but it's probably just easier not to. So I do tend to leave them to the end, which means I am going to have an absolutely mammoth task when it comes to beading this beautiful lady. But it's what I've chosen to do, and I'm going with it. And I'll cross that bridge when I get to it, which actually might not be all that long. I've been working on this lady for over a year now. I started her in May 2024, I think. So she's past her first birthday. Prefer to finish her before her second birthday. Well, I think that should be fine. We're only just over a year, aren't we? So I think that'd be all right. Right. That's that section done. Now there is another one, but it's actually all the way up here, and although I want to be frugal, that is probably not enough to really get me. By the time I get up there, I'm going to have very little left. So I am going to run this one in at this point. Let's take it. I've got some better stitches this one. I'm just going to go a few stitches under that way and then turn it round. Don't tend to do it to start, but certainly to finish, I will very often do a kind of across and back, kind of lock it in place. Come on, out you come. There we go. So that's that little section, those two little bits done there, which is fantastic. So let's move on to our third colour. We will move on to the orange. Now I wanted to show you here, this is, as I say, these are all number 4 braids. Now the pattern on this one, I don't know if they changed it at any point, but the pattern I've got actually calls for a number 8 braid, which is thicker. So I did get this is the number 8 braid in that colour, and I thought I would get some to show you because I decided not to use it in the end because it is really chunky. And I just decided it would be horrible to work with. So if I put them next to each other, you can see the difference in thickness there. At least I hope you can. This one, it seemed far too thick to stitch with, and I just went ahead and got the number 4. They may have changed the pattern now anyway, but so I guess that's the only change I did make on here, was that I decided that that was a step too far and I did not want it. So I've gone with the orange, which I think is actually not quite as crunchy as the pinky colour, but a little bit more than the gold and the green. Now this one's quite frayed at the end here, so I am not sure I'm going to get this threaded without a trim, but again we'll see. Oh my goodness, 3 for 3. It does work. It really does work. Right, let's pull that one out to there. Oh, and actually I'll show you as well. I don't know, you may have spotted these earlier. This is, I'll show you the ends. I've got little stickers on the ends of here. I've done all of them. Here we go. And they've all got the little a little sticker on the end with the symbol drawn on, so that I can find the right colour. I mean, you kind of know by the time you've done a bit, you know which ones you're using anyway, but little symbol stickers on the end. Absolutely fantastic. Right. Let's see. Yeah, so see that end is now that I've threaded is quite a bit more frayed than that end. You can't get them lined up. This one's definitely a bit more frayed in this hand. So I'm going to make sure that my needle is set. A little bit jiggling required. Oh, I've done it the wrong way. You don't want to be doing this too much and moving your needle up and down your thread, but there we go. So I'm now going to bury the very slightly frayed end. And we've got some stitches and some back stitches for No, I need to be a bit higher up. And again, what I've done, again, I'll show you the little bit of pattern on here. I've highlighted in green on this occasion. I've got a couple of stitches over here, which is going to be a bit of a nuisance, but yeah, that might be a little bit for fun to do. I think we'll work out across this way. So you can see I've got some little bits here. I've got some little bits down here, but all of this red lines, that's all backstitch. So we're going to do that as we go because it's all in one strand. So I can actually do the backstitch and the stitches all at once. So I'm going to start over here. Just try and find that spot on here. Oh, it is actually a tiny bit naughty because, yeah, I might have to change my plan on this one because it's over here and there's actually, this is just where this bit is of metallic that I haven't actually stitched. We've just stitched these bits. That's also metallic and I don't really want to do that backstitch line over there. So I'm going to bite the bullet and start over here and we'll go for it. We'll just go for it. We'll just do some counting. So we need to start out on the end of this branch. So I'm going to run all the way down there. I'm being very careful pulling that through. So I've got that secured. Now these first couple of stitches won't be the difficult ones. It'll be after that. At least if I get my counting wrong, I'll have something to blame. I can say, oh, that's because I was doing a stitch with me. Right. It's a little bit more difficult as well because I'm out over on this edge of the fabric. Oh! And this is already, look at that horrible, horrible. There we go. Thought, oh, we're going to have a lovely knot right in our first stitch. I think we're all right. No, we're not. Oh, we've got nonsense. Right. Come on, thread. Oof. Is this one going to be the troublemaker? It might be. Okay. See how we go. I said this one wasn't as bad, didn't I? Well, it's just going to prove me wrong, isn't it? So I've got 2 full cross stitches to get in there, and then we've got some back stitch. So I'm going to count my back stitch line. 1, 2, 3. I'm going to double check that. 1, 2, 3, yeah, and it goes to that corner. Now I am doing it as an actual back stitch. I could probably have done that as a forward stitch from there to there, but it just always looks better when it's actually done backwards, as back stitch generally is. That said, if I need to move around a lot, I might do, there's another one down here, I might do it as a forward stitch because I'm just going to need to get from one part of the design to the other as I work around here. Now, I'm going to count this very carefully. This is going to be fun. 2, 3, 4 down and 2 across. Okay. This is going to leave a long thread on the back, but I'm going to have to go with it. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2. And I'm just pulling this, making sure that this is, again, I don't want to pull it too tight. But I do not want this too floppy on the back. And I am going to have, you'll see on the back, I have got a pretty heckin' long thread on the back there. Because I don't think there's any other good way to do this. And I think that'll get caught down when I do the beading later. I think that'll get caught down. There's not really anything else I can do about it. Now I am also going to do my other tip here that I was going to show you, because look what this thread is doing. This is twisting all over the place. And I'm surprised it hasn't happened before, because the final tip I was going to share with you, I think this is my final one, is to untwist your thread more often. One strand can still twist. And if it twists, then it's not going to lie nice and flat. So it's really important to untwist more often than you otherwise would if you're seeing it twirling. Now, it didn't actually happen too much with the other ones, and it won't as much if you use a nice short length. Now, I was trying to move this out of the way to show you, because usually my go-to for untwisting my threads is to slide my needle all the way down to the bottom, straighten the thread out, and then pull the needle back up. And I don't really want to do that on a metallic. I call it the slide. Now, I don't want to do that for this because I don't want to move my needle up and down any more than I absolutely have to. So on this one, I can either do a dangle, hold this up and let it untwist itself, or you can actually just kind of just pull it through your fingers. And I'm also going to move my needle along a tiny bit while I'm going, and just sort of untangle it that way. Just unspin it a bit. It's never going to be perfect. It's metallic thread. If you want your metallic thread perfect, well, you're certainly in the wrong place watching me. This is as good as I can get it and as good as I want it. Oh, look at this. Oh, this one is just... it's determined to do all the horrible things, this one. Which will make the backstitch supremely fun. But hey, you will see, we can wrangle the metallic thread into submission. It is a possibility. Right, I've got 2 stitches there. I am hoping that they're in the right place. I might just count again and make sure that it's correct. 1, 2, 3. Yep, definitely seems to be. Now I've got 2 backstitch lines along here as well. So we'll do those. I know they're right alongside the actual stitches, but this is the pattern and we're sticking with it and trusting the process. So that's 2 little backstitch lines done down the side of those stitches. Now this is where I am actually going to do a forward stitch over here, because otherwise it is going to be a nightmare to count. So I've counted 2 diagonally. I'm now counting from there to here, and I'm going to make this stitch in this direction because otherwise it's going to be pretty horrible. And there aren't any more stitches out here with these bits that I'm doing. It's the only other bits that are out here are beads. So yeah, there it is. I'm not shying away from doing the tricky stuff. On camera, no less. So this one's definitely needing a little bit of a gentle but also firm hand. You can see, you know, that bit there, there's just like a little bobbly bit on the thread, and it just doesn't want to lie quite so flat. It doesn't matter so much because it's the bottom arm. And in the grand scheme of things, you will not notice if your metallic threads are not perfect. I'm just going to untwist that again a little bit. I think as cross stitchers, we all feel like we can see every tiny little perceived flaw, not even actual flaw, but we feel like we can see everything. And in reality, no one else can. No one in the grand scheme of, I mean, look how big this fancy lady is. if you think anyone is coming up to look at one little stitch to go, do you know what? That one arm of metallic thread is not lying quite as neatly as it could. Yeah, they're not. And you won't when it's finished either. You're not going to do that. So accept it for what it is. Right, that's those ones. Okay. Can you tell how much more concentration this one's taking? I've gone a lot quieter. I think, to be fair, I've covered all the tips that I was going to share. I think we're going to need another... Debating how I'm doing this next bit of stitching. I'm trying to see where this goes. 1, 2. This is tricky. I'm looking at this bit here. So I've done this done these stitches here and this one. And I don't want to do the back stitch up this side here until I've done those stitches. So I'm going to count here. I'm thinking this goes 1, 2, 3, 4. That's covering 5 stitches, which I'll probably have to do in one long go. And then I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 straight stitches. So I think I'm going to jump. I'm going to count 1, 2, 3 up and 1 across and just go in there. Actually, I'll do 4 up. 1, 2, 3, 4 and 1 across. And I think I'm going to double count. I should here have 4 stitches up to there. 1, 2, 3, 4. Yes. Right. So these ones where I can, I'll do them. I will do the back stitch 1 stitch length, but obviously any ones that are particularly long, I'll just do them all in one a long stitch. So I'm mixing it up. It's a bit of a combo of back stitch and long stitch, just depending on whatever's easiest for me. So it's up to there. And we can come over here. I mean, I'm going to run out of thread before I finish all of this section, I think. Whew. So you can see how I'm having to just give this one a good little tug. Make sure it is sitting nicely. Poke it with your thumbnail as well if you need to. Just, you know, you can poke them with your nail, move them with your needle, try and get them to lie a little bit nicer. Anything to make them look good. So I think we'll probably wrap up when I finish this thread. Right, that's my 5 stitches in there, and then I think I'm just going to go some more back stitch. I'm going to go back up to the top here to do the back stitch. That's down this side. Well, people talk about saving the best for last. I think I saved the worst for last with this orange thread. It has definitely done its best to show you the worst side of metallic threads. but it still looks good at the end of the day. As I say, not the speediest stitching, but just with taking a little bit of time. A little bit of time, she says, and I've just done a stitch. And I'm never going to manage to get that one unpicked. I think that one might just, it might just stay like that, to be honest. I had one more vertical stitch than I needed there, but you won't see by the time I've done that one there, so we'll just leave it like that. Right, and then I've got this long stitch. I think I'm going to, again, I'm going to take this one as a forward stitch because I've got 5 stitches to do. This is actually going to get really silly because I'm going to end up with my thread. Oh no, I have got some to run in. I think if I don't want it down here when I'm finished, I'll have nowhere to run my end in. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Right, and I can double check because that should be 3 along from there. Yeah, that looks right. Yeah, I'm doing all the not backstitch on this one now because it's just going to be, it's going to be far too hard to do these as back stitches. Needs must. And I think I've just can eke out enough on here to get my thread up to here. Now I could try this. This line has got to go all the way up to the top, but I don't actually think I've got enough thread here. I think I'm going to be running, if I try and finish this line up here, I'm going to run out halfway. So I'm going to call it quits while I'm ahead there. We've definitely got, I mean, again, still not too badly frayed, but that one is a bit more frayed at the end there. And I'm kind of only really going to go in one direction on this one, so I'm just going to go, I'm going to run it as far as I can, because I'm not going to run it one direction and back again. So I think we'll give it a good run through, and I think that will be fine. Now let's have a little look. So that's looking pretty good. So we've added a bit in here, we've added some pink, we've added this over here, which, you know, you can see by the time you add beads in all between here, that's going to look so lovely. Those little pops of orange in there, absolutely gorgeous. Now, I'm looking at my notes, have I actually covered all of the points I wanted to? I have. Amazing. We have seen, I think, all of my little tips, and yeah, I think it's probably time to call it a day there. It's probably been quite a long video actually, but I hope that's been useful for you to see how I do metallic threads. If you're not already subscribed to the channel, then please consider doing so, because there's so much going on here. I do floss tubes where you can catch up with all of my projects like this one, more Stitch With Me's, more tutorials, little stitchy snippets, which are just little mini tips, so much going on. So I would love for you to subscribe if you're not already. If you are, then thank you so much for supporting the channel, and I hope I'll see you again soon. Until then, happy stitching and bye for now.